these software companies realize that as they embed payments and figure out this payment monetization strategy, it's giving them the ability to change their business model. It creates a really competitive advantage for the companies that are able to do that well.
Hey everybody, James Shepard here with the Merchant Sales Podcast. Today I am interviewing the CEO of Tilled, named Caleb Avery. We've had him on the podcast several times. I'd really recommend actually go back and just search for his name, Caleb Avery, and CC Sales Pro in Google. You'd find things there with the Merchant Sales Podcast. Listen to some previous episodes. But we talked today about how this concept of monetizing payments is revolutionizing the ISV world. If you are an ISV owner, we do talk directly to you in part of this podcast and give you some really interesting tips. But of course, we also transition to the ISO agent and what you need to do to take advantage of these trends. We talked last week about how software is eating payments. And so we're talking about all of those trends and what you can do to take advantage of that. One thing I do want to make clear, and I always do this when I have a podcast episode with a consulting client or advertiser. So Tilled is both a consulting client and an advertising client. They did not pay me to be interviewed on this podcast, but I always want to make it clear that we do some things with Tilled. And at the end of this podcast interview, we do share some links to some resources that I created with Tilled. And of course, those are sponsored by Tilled as the advertiser and as a strategic partner of mine. And so with that being said, I'm really excited about the event. Oh, one thing I should mention real quick. Patty Murphy, she wasn't on last week's or this week. And the reason is because we recorded both of these episodes during the MWAA. I didn't go to it this year. She did. And so she's there lining up our great interviews for the future. And so, of course, we missed Patty, but she's not here. But we're going to go after this interview right into questions from the field. So it might be a little bit of a shorter episode today since we don't have Patty with us. But I'm really excited about diving in and talking to Caleb Avery. Let's go. Hey, everybody. I'm here today with Caleb Avery, CEO at Tilled. How you doing today, Caleb?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Absolutely. Great to have you as always. So you've been on the show quite a few times, of course, and today we're going to be talking about this transformation of the ISV market. We've talked so much about kind of the ISO perspective, which we'll get into, but we're really going to hone in on just what's happening in the ISV market. Of course, last week I did the episode with my own ISV that's integrated with Tilled as well and interviewed the CEO of that company. And so today I'm going to dive into that. Before we do that, though, give us a little update. It's been a little while since you were on the podcast. How is Tilled doing and what are you kind of seeing in the space?
Yeah, certainly. So it's been a really exciting time for us here at Tilled. So a couple of exciting milestones for us. We just signed our 100th software company at
Wow.
Tilled, and
Awesome.
for me, I'm 4.5 years into the journey, building this out, and definitely 4.5 years ago, getting to 100 ISVs would definitely have been kind of a distant thought for me. So
Sure.
pretty excited. There I think for me when I look at especially like the last 6 months, there's been a lot of changes in the overall, ecosystem, especially for folks that are out fundraising. And so, as the capital markets have gotten tighter, I think we've seen a lot more software companies that are really interested and excited about trying to figure out how to monetize their
Yeah.
payments. And certainly for us, at Tilled, one of the key parts, of our mission is empowering software companies to have that ability to easily integrate and easily monetize the payments flowing through their platform. So I think for us, the value proposition has really never, been stronger, and this market only continues to grow.
Yeah. I think it's crazy. Every time a new study comes out or a new like data point about this, it's always like, what in the world? It's just changing so quick. Let's do this. Like if we go back, say like 5 years, right? And
Mhm.
the way, what it meant to have a vertical specific software company then, and then we fast forward to today, in your mind, what has this idea of monetizing payments, how has that impacted the overall kind of software for businesses, vertical specific software? Like how has that impacted those businesses?
Yeah, certainly. So, when I think about, over the last 5 years, I started building out Tilled, 4.5 years ago. Before that was consulting for software businesses. And 5 years ago, the idea of monetizing payments as a vertical software business was still really early days. There
Right.
weren't a lot of adopters that were thinking about payment monetization. Even a lot of investors weren't really aware, of the opportunity. And so when I think about 5 years ago, I think the statistic is that software-led payments only represented about 14% of the actual payment volume, here in the US, whereas, here, 5 years later, that's more than doubled. And so you're talking about over $1 trillion of volume that's
Wow.
transitioned from, the traditional agent ISO, acquire model in favor of, vertical software companies. And from my perspective, you're seeing these software companies realize that as they embed payments and figure out this payment monetization strategy, it's giving them the ability to change their business model. Where, historically they really were relying on the SaaS and subscription, fees to power their business. Now you're seeing all of these, examples of companies that have been able to come in and drive two, three, four times, the revenue stream from payments, and oftentimes they're able to discount or even potentially give away, the software portion of their business by creating, that payment monetization angle, and it creates a really competitive advantage for the companies that are able to do that well.
Mm. So as you look forward now, and we see these trends, it almost seems like a lot of them are accelerating, if anything. But as you look
Absolutely.
forward, right, and you see these trends, and I love how you brought up the investor thing. When you think about the VCs, and pretty much most of the big investors now are kind of aware of this
Mhm.
concept and pushing it. What is that going to do, and how do you see this kind of changing the way that existing vertical specific software companies are built, and are changing, and then new ones are coming along? How's it going to impact that?
Yeah, I think one of the shifts that we're starting to see right now, and I think will only accelerate over the next 5 years, is that companies earlier in their journey are going to be thinking about, how to monetize their payments. Where, historically, like when I was consulting 5, 6, 7, years ago, it was primarily the later stage, more established, companies that had, hundreds of millions of dollars in volume on someone like a Stripe, that were now starting to think about that opportunity, to go monetize payments, because hey, there's this tangible,
Right.
hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in revenue, that we're leaving on the table. Whereas now, as more, software company founders and investors at all stages are really understanding the value of payments monetization, and you introduce, opportunities and technologies like a Tild that make it easier, for software companies to monetize payments. Now you're talking about, we're averaging a 9-day integration, for software companies
Right.
into the platform. And so all of a sudden, you have startups where that's now a viable,
Right.
opportunity
Right.
for them, to start monetizing their payments. And so, to me, when I look at, the trends, I expect, what was, 14% of the overall ecosystem, now it's probably 25 to 30, percent of the overall payments ecosystem. I could really see, over the next couple of years, the software led payments and vertical software businesses being the majority of the volume, processed here in
Yeah.
the US. And we want to be a key enabler of that trend.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about this is, certainly the economic pie is always, growing at some kind of reasonable rate in the US
Mhm.
historically, right? But a big part of that trend is kind of, there's this opposite side to that trend, which is every merchant that goes to vertical specific software basically is leaving the ISO agent
Mhm.
model.
Yep.
Do you think that's accurate?
I absolutely do. I mean,
I
I
don't know any
think,
other way to
when,
say that, right? Like, that's kind of the reality. I mean,
well, it's true. And I think, when you look at, what impact that potentially has on the kind of agent ISO, ecosystem. When I started selling, whatever, a dozen, years ago, you weren't really competing against,
no.
integrated payment solutions. You
Right.
were competing against other agents, other ISOs and
Right.
call centers. And so, the differentiation was, hey, I'm a local guy,
Right.
walking into the business, I'll save you money, better support, that whole spiel. And not to say that there's not an opportunity to do that, because there are certainly kind of merchants and verticals that, value the support, value the relationship with the agent. But more and more, you're seeing every conceivable vertical that you can think of, there is a vertical software,
Right.
solution, for that. And I think once merchants try, a good integrated software experience where they're getting, help with scheduling, payroll, whatever the additional, benefit of that vertical software solution is, it's pretty hard for those merchants to
Yeah.
think about going back, to an unintegrated, payment solution. And I think that's where, there exists this combination of kind of threat and opportunity, for the agents and the ISOs, that are out there. And, we're certainly seeing, more and more folks that are, I would say, curious about
Right.
this. I don't think
Yes.
a lot of people are super well educated,
Right.
on this category at this point, but we're seeing more and more people that are curious and trying to,
Right.
learn more about this. And so we get a lot of interest, frankly, from a lot of the people in your audience that are saying like, how do I learn
Right.
more, about, how to sell to ISVs? How do I break into,
Right.
this category? Because they're recognizing that, hey, there's this opportunity that exists and they want to be able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I want to circle back actually to the agents and ISOs here in a minute. But one thing I want to do that I think will actually be really beneficial for my audience because, for them, they're trying to figure out how do I even talk to the ISV owners and all that. So let's kind of zoom out a minute and let's say, okay, we're talking to ISV owners and executives for just
Mhm.
a second. And I know we have quite a few of you listening on the podcast as well. So for that person that's starting, so maybe they're VC backed, maybe they got angel investors, whatever it is. Maybe they're bootstrapping it like we did with CC Storage, but it's like, okay, we're going to build a new vertical specific software. What do you want to say to them about like how they should be thinking about payments and payments integration?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you're first getting started, I think it's really tempting to just, go pick Stripe, go pick Braintree, do a quick integration and kind of forget about payments. We've got other problems to solve.
Right.
Stripe can handle this, for us. But one of the big mistakes that we see a lot of software companies make is not being conscious and thinking about, their data and their relationships with their customers. And so we have folks, that come to us, they've been on Stripe for a year or two, and they start to realize that they actually don't have a lot of the data that they need to be able to move their customers off of someone like a Stripe. And so while it's easy to go through that initial technical integration on Stripe, you should really be forward thinking about, hey, at some point in the future you're likely going to want to monetize your payments. And so even if you don't choose to monetize payments from day one, really be thinking about the data and the kind of trade-offs of leveraging a platform like Stripe, because you're losing access to that data, you're losing some control, and that can make it much harder in the future to transition off of a platform like Stripe.
Yeah, I love that. I think, one thing I would add to it is I think especially for the startup that's looking for outside funding, you know, when
Mhm.
you go to do your next, capital raise, when you're able to say not just, well, in the future we could monetize payments. When you're able to say our margin per unit here, our margin per client
Yep.
is 40% SaaS, 60% payments, that shows those investors or whoever, the bank, whoever, oh, wow, they got multiple streams of income here, lots of recurring revenue. These people are tied in. Like, so I think even if the numbers are potentially small initially,
Mhm.
having the data about the payment processing is like crucial because you have to know. And I mean, it's not like, I think one of the other things ISV owners don't understand a lot of times is the complexity of payments.
Yep.
Even if it's easy to integrate with Tilt, right? There's still this complexity around margin, right? What is their
Mhm.
interchange cost going to be? Well, if you're starting out, I mean, I remember when we started CC Storage, I had this conversation with somebody, I can't remember who it was, and they're like, "What do you think our interchange cost is going to be?" And I was like, "Well, the average ticket's about $100, and I have no idea how much of it's regulated debit. So our effective rate of interchange is going to be somewhere between 0.7% and 1.8." It's like I have
That
absolutely no
very
idea.
specific range. Yeah.
Right, like, I have no clue, and it's like, how do you do a financial projection around that? So, my point is, when you're starting out, like, it'd be good to know that because 'cause you're gonna know really quick. I mean, as soon as we had, like, 10 customers, we were like, "Oh, I
Then
know what the effective rate of
here's the
interchange is gonna be,"
average.
right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, anyway, yeah, I like that. So, what about the established one? They did, maybe they went Stripe, they've been building for 4 years, 3 years, whatever. They've got, 10 million a month running through their platform or whatever it is. What would you tell them about kind of the path forward and how should they be thinking about it in terms of payments?
Yeah, I think for us, certainly our kind of main focus has been on, more established ISVs. I think, of the
Yeah.
100 that we've signed, probably 20% of our clients are startups,
Right.
processing their first payments. But most of what we do are kind of established businesses that are leaving a Stripe or a WorldPay or something, like that. And for a lot of these clients, they're coming to us for, I think, two big reasons. I think, one is the customer experience, and two are the attach rates of payments in their portfolio.
Right.
And so when you think about the customer, experience, we just brought on board a monster, client that was leveraging a combination of Stripe and Card Connect. And their big frustration was that they weren't able to fully white label the payment element of their platform. And for a lot of the more established, ISVs and software companies, they really want to own the relationship with their customers. They really care about their brand being front and center, with the
Sure.
merchants on their platform. And so, one of the things that's been, core to Tild has been allowing, our software partners to put their brand front and center with their customers. And that's not just slapping a logo, on the console. That's really allowing them to customize the merchant support experience. So, hey, we send out a dispute email to your merchant. Hey, there's a new chargeback. Well, that email is going to be branded with your logo, your color scheme, your contact information. And so it's a
Right.
true end-to-end, white label experience. And so I think really nailing that customer experience and having the right support available for your clients is really important for the established ISVs. And then that attach rate, I think, is also something that not enough software companies pay attention to. You made the point about for the kind of startup, ISV, it's more about getting that initial data. What's
Right.
interchange? How are we going to be able to price this? How much money
Right.
can we make? But for an established business that's trying to go raise, a Series B round of funding, those investors are saying, okay, great, your interchange is 1.8, you're charging 2.7, here's the margin, but why are you only selling payments to 10%, of your install
Right.
base?
Right.
And so, that's been a
Yep.
big problem that we've really been leaning in, with some of our, more established customers where, they're coming to us from WePay or Stripe or WorldPay, and, they've got 1,000 customers on the platform, but they only had, 100 of those 1,000 customers signed up, as
Right.
Stripe payments. And so that's where there's this kind of educational component where we're saying, okay, well, how does your sales team sell payments? How do you have this message on the website? How do you have it priced? How do you support, this? And so there's not only the like technical integration, behind Tild, but there's also this element of like, consultative,
Yes.
approach to what we do, where we're also helping them figure out the pricing strategy, the go-to-market strategy, the messaging. Hey, here's a battle card, for how to sell against Stripe. And if your payment partner is not going to help you do that, you better have somebody on your team, that
Yeah.
knows how to do that well, or you and your investors are probably not going to be all that happy with the attach rates that you're seeing.
Yeah, I love it. That's such an important variable too. You don't see, it's funny for me, I don't think about that as much because all the companies I built on the software side have all been like payments first, obviously.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like from day one, oh, you want to use our software? Well, you have to sign up for a merchant
It
account.
comes with payments. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? But it's interesting because obviously the legacy, it wouldn't be that way. If they were using
Mhm.
Stripe, they're like, well, they're not making any money on that.
It
So it's
doesn't
like,
matter.
who
Yeah.
cares if they sign up for our payments or somebody else? But yeah, to your point now, it's like once they realize, oh, we can monetize this, then it's like, well, wait a second. Yeah, how do we get everybody switched over? So I'm sure we'll have podcast episodes down the road to talk about some of the solutions to that. That's an interesting one. Okay, so let's shift gears now back to the ISO agent, our
Mhm.
primary audience that's listening into this. So as they're kind of understanding this, they're buying into this obvious trend that, I say it all the time, software is eating payments. I don't know who said that originally, but it's a great way to put it.
Yep.
They're buying into that trend. What should they do? Like they're a small ISO, they're an agent. What do they need to do right now to start, positioning themselves to take advantage of this trend rather than getting eaten alive by it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think, step one is just getting a little bit more educated on the space. And I think there's definitely an opportunity that, we've put together, collectively for folks that want to just learn more,
Yep.
about the space. Maybe you're not ready to go out and start having conversations, with ISVs yet, but we've developed, jointly with you, a training course that I'm sure we can link to,
Yep.
somewhere in the comments, for any ISO agent, free training course. They can go in and watch a series of videos on how to find software companies, how to talk to them, what are the problems that they're facing, what are the solutions that we can offer, what does an integration look like with Tild, and that can really give them all of the information that they need to get comfortable going out and starting to sell payments to software companies. Our team is also very happy to help. So we've got several folks on our team who are exclusively focused on helping us scale up our ISO and agent community. I think we're about to be at like 150, ISO agent partners. I think we're like 148 or something,
That's great.
right now. And so we we
Sure.
we know how to help support,
Sure.
agents and ISOs. And for most of those folks, they're bringing their first ISV opportunities ever, to Tild. And so it's not just, highly
Right.
experienced,
Yeah.
ISOs that have already sold 30,
Right. Right.
ISVs that are coming to us. Like some of
Sure.
these are like individual agents saying, hey, I just met this software company. I think this could be a good opportunity for Tild. Would you
Right.
guys mind hopping on the phone, with
Yeah.
me to talk to them? And so we're really happy
Yeah.
to help, walk them through,
Yeah.
their first couple of deals and get them comfortable with, that first experience selling to software companies.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I think is going to be so exciting for both of us, Caleb, is going to be, 5 years from now when we're talking to that agent or that small ISO that like got their 10th ISV deal or the individual agent, right? And they're like, I got like, whatever tens of thousands of in residual growing every month. And they're like, what do I do? I can go live on a desert island. Like literally there's no support there because it's so different, right? It's like when you refer an ISV, it's like it's like a referral. I mean, it's not like a merchant account where you got to, you don't get the call at 1 a.m. when they're batched at work at the bar. You know what I mean?
We just had an individual agent, bring us just an absolutely monster opportunity earlier this week. And if they're able to transition all of that volume to Tild, that individual agent would make $600,000 a year on that software company by bringing them to us, which is insane.
Right.
To me, having started going door to door, it's like
Right.
there's not an individual merchant
No.
opportunity to make $50,000 a month
Right.
in residual, but like you go find the right,
Yep.
vertical software business, and like it is a realistic,
Yeah.
possibility to earn, a very, very sizable, revenue stream, over time as they
Yeah.
scale up. And I think, we've used the terminology, putting your portfolio on autopilot, where,
Yeah.
not only is it kind of exciting, hey, they brought their initial, 100, 500, 1,000, whatever, merchants over, but as that software company scales, they're
Right.
adding 35, 50, 75, 100 new merchants a month.
Right.
Well, that's 100 new merchants that you're getting paid out on. And to
Right.
your point, you haven't gone and filled out the application. You're
Right.
not answering questions about, the terminal. It's literally like hassle free,
Yeah. You
residual
literally did
income.
nothing. Yeah.
Literally nothing. You
Yeah.
you got, my team on the phone with the right
Right.
person early on, and you're
Yeah.
making money from here on out.
Yeah, I love it. So, two resources I want to direct my audience to, and then I'll ask you for anywhere else you would send them. So, you mentioned the training course a little bit ago. That is at ccsalespro.com/Tild, TILLED. If you go there, there's like a form to fill out for the Tild reseller program, and then that'll take you right over to the training. Also, though, I do want to bring up another one that we've done together that I'm really proud of. Actually, there's a YouTube playlist. If you haven't seen it
Mhm.
yet,
Yeah.
just go to youtube.com/ccsalespro. And I did a playlist on how to monetize payments. So it's actually directed to the ISV, not directed to the agent, the ISO. It's directed to the ISV. But I think if you're looking to go sell ISVs, you could do a lot worse than watching that. I mean, it's got
Yeah.
like, it's like my pitch to the ISV. And this is something where, everybody has their strengths, their weaknesses. This is an area where I've got a lot of strength. I mean, I've already got multiple software companies. I used to be a developer. I'm in the sales side of things. I've owned a processing company. And so then I also working with the Tild team, which is obviously massive expertise in this. So anyway, so if you want to learn more about this, we have two really good courses. The one is at ccsalespro.com/Tild, which is the course for the ISOs and agents. If you want to just learn more about kind of the monetized payments concept, go to youtube.com/ccsalespro, click on the playlist, and it's right there. What else would you tell people, Caleb? But maybe any other thoughts on partnering with Tild or where you would send people to learn more? Anything else you want to throw out there?
Yeah, certainly. If you want just more content, I know, James, you're the king of payments content, but we also have, a good stash of content
Yes.
on our website, on our blog. So, Tild.com is certainly a great place to go learn more about kind of our solution, the value proposition, how pricing works, all that good stuff. And then, if you just want to follow along on the journey, LinkedIn is really a great place
Yeah.
to follow me personally, Caleb Avery, as well as Tild, the company, in terms of how it works, to come partner with Tild. If you're a software company, super easy process. Get in touch with someone on our team. We can get you over applications and contracts right away. You can actually sign up yourself for our sandbox. You can go to docs.tild.com and you can start playing around with the integration. We've had partners complete the entire integration in as little as 3 days. And they come to us saying, hey, we're fully integrated. Where do I get, an application
Yeah. I
to
got to
sign
get this
up,
active.
to Tild,
Right.
which is super exciting, just
Yeah.
considering how self-service we've made that experience. And then for agents or ISOs that are interested in learning more, we've got a couple of great folks. Peter and Ian on our team are just phenomenal. You've probably seen them at some of the industry
Mhm.
trade shows out there, talking about Tild, and you can get in touch with them at partners@tild.com, and they'd be happy to, hop on a call and walk you through exactly how, the program works at Tild.
Love it. Caleb, as always, such a pleasure. Thanks for taking time to share your insights with us today. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again soon.
Yeah, James, really appreciate you having me on the show today and looking forward to next time.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast interview with Caleb Avery. I want to share with you today one of my kind of little life hacks, I guess you would call it, to seeing significant growth in my business, and something that I've done for a while that I really believe will be actionable for you and that will help you, whether you're an individual agent or an ISO owner. So a little bit of context to justify providing this life hack. So our revenue doubled from 2021 to 2022, and it is on track to triple from 2022 to 2023. Okay. So, and by the way, our profits are, the first quarter were 4 or 5 times better than the first quarter of last year. Now that won't hold because we're hiring a lot of people right now. I think I'm going to hire like 4 people in this, in this 10-day period right now, because we're trying to scale up our creative team and stuff. But at any rate, this is not like it's all, we're just huge growth and then our profits are going nowhere. So we're seeing significant revenue growth, significant profit growth, and that is without any outside investment of any kind. So how do we accomplish that? Like, what are the things that have to happen in order to see that kind of growth in your business? And what I always really challenge myself to do, and what I would challenge you to do, is start thinking in terms of constraints and in terms of, putting yourself in this box where you say, if I had to accomplish something, what would I do? Right. So as an example, when you look at your customers, let's say you have a portfolio and you've got 100 merchants, right? And that portfolio, let's say you're making $8,000 in residual income. So one way you could say that is your average merchant, you're making $80 on each merchant account per month, right? So here's a question you might ask yourself. You said, okay, if you had to get your average merchant to pay you $1,000 a month instead of 80, what could you do? Right? How would you do that? And, I'll give you some ideas in a minute, but when you start asking that question and you say, okay, I have to make $1,000 per account, how would I do it? Right? What's going to happen is your creative juices are going to start flowing. And if you force yourself, and the easy thing is, you're listening to this podcast, you're driving down the road, I ask you this question, you're probably already moving on to something else in your mind because I'm talking, right? You'd have to pause the podcast right here, and you could take the next 30 minutes or an hour and think about that question and say, okay, I want to get customers to pay me $1,000. What would my customers pay $1,000 for right now? And how can I provide that to them? Right? Is there someone I could hire that would come into my company that would have some skill that they need? Right? Should I be targeting larger merchant accounts? And how would I do that? Right? If I want my average customer to pay make $1,000 a month, well, maybe I just need to sell larger accounts, right? Can I do that? Could I provide them with consulting services on how to make sure their point of sale system is running really smoothly and, offer that? Could I find a strategic partner in the local community that does video marketing or social media marketing, and maybe they're charging these merchants $3,000 to $5,000 a month in marketing, and maybe they'd be willing to pay me $500, right? So you think about ideas like that. And as you're just driving down the road or you're sitting somewhere quiet, if you take 30 minutes or an hour and say, okay, I'm going to stay focused on this one thing. And that thing is going to be, how do I triple, quadruple my revenues, right? You might think about it and say, okay, instead of looking at per customer, you might look at your overall business. And you might say, okay, so $8,000 a month, I'm making $64,000 a year in residual income. And you say, okay, so this next year, I want to make an extra $100,000. Okay. And not just I want to, I have to. I have to make an extra $100,000 next year, right? Or and come up with something. This is what I like to do. Is I like to be really extreme with it in my mind. Like, in your mind, think about a scenario where you have to do it. Like, if I don't make an extra $100,000 next year, they're going to repossess my house. Whatever, right? Some really extreme example. They're gonna, I guess not repossess is not the right word for a house, right? They're gonna foreclose on my house. There you go. How about that? Repossess your car, foreclose on your house, whatever, right? You get the idea. So an extreme example like that, and you're like, okay, I have to make an extra $100,000 next year. Maybe you have a company and you're already making $1 million a year, a more established ISO, and you say, okay, we want to double our revenue next year. If we had to double our revenue next year, what would we do? What are some ideas? Get people together in your company. If you're not the idea person, find some other creative people, whether it's in your company, if you have other employees, or, your other business people that and say, hey, if you were in my business and you're like, I have to make an extra $1 million next year, how would you do it? And start thinking about that, right? One of the other exercises that I got from Grant Cardone that I really like is, and I don't remember exactly how he words it, but the idea is you think about people you're going to sell and you say, okay, is there something I can sell if I want to make, $1 million next year? Is there something I could sell to one company that they'd be willing to pay $1 million for? If not, is there something I could sell to 10 companies that they'd be willing to pay $100,000 for? So, roughly, $9,000 a month or whatever it is, right? By the way, this whole time I've been using the wrong math tonight. If I say 8,000 a month would be 96,000 a year in residual. Sorry about that. Anyway, but how much, can I sell 10 businesses on a $100,000 thing? If you say, well, no, I can't think of anything. Okay. Well, could you sell 100 businesses on paying you $10,000 a month for something if you want to get to $1 million a month, right? So you got to think through and start on the high side, because you might actually be surprised if you really start to think through it and you ask yourself, what would these businesses be willing to pay? And realize that, especially for more well-established, for these companies that are well-established, you may not even be able to sell them on payment processing directly, but you might be able to sell them on consulting services to help them understand their payment processing and restructure their payment processing. So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage that expertise to your advantage. And you've got to think through in your business how they could be. Now, I can't give you all the specific examples because you're unique. You have a unique set of skills. You have a unique background. Maybe your background before you get into this industry is that you were a restaurant owner, right? Okay, great. Well, what if when you sold your payment processing services, what if you bundled things together to make them more valuable? What if you went to a restaurant and said, look, I'm the guy that people work with when they want to streamline their operation. And so I provide payment processing. I provide a point of sale solution. I train the employees. I train the team. I'm in here 3 times a week for the first, 2 months. Then I'm in here 1 time a week for the rest of the 12 months. We do a 12-month agreement, and it only costs $100,000 plus the cost of payment processing, right? So, imagine if I could just revolutionize, and they've got, a big restaurant, or they've got 3 locations, and they may be doing, a combined, $1 million a month in revenue. So for them to spend 10,000 of that million on you to streamline their operation as far as the point of sale, the payment processing, making sure everybody gets trained, you're going to help them make good operating procedures for training new employees. Like, what if you rolled everything together like that and you went to the restaurant and you said, yeah, the minimum deal that I do is, it's $100,000 a year, or it's $50,000 a year, or $25,000 a year, I don't know what, whatever, right? How much do you think it's worth? But stop thinking of it in terms of how much do I think I could sell this for? Instead, you got to think of how much value would this add to my client? Now, I do not recommend selling something that's a bad deal, right? Don't sell it for $100,000 if you don't think that restaurant isn't going to achieve $1 million in organizational value as a result of what you do for them, right? If you say, well, I think I could help that restaurant be worth $250,000 more because I could help them increase their cash flow, their monthly cash flow by $8,000 or $10,000. So, then I would say, well, if it's only going to be worth $250,000, you should probably sell it for $30,000 or something like that. So I like to do a 10x, right? So whatever I'm going to sell to somebody, if it's something expensive, I want to make sure, hey, I'm going to be able to give you 10 times that result. I had a conversation just yesterday with a new potential consulting client / kind of strategic partner. And I was pitching them on, a program that would be a 2-year program that would cost about $500,000. So $250,000 a year. And, we have a verbal interest, and I believe we'll move forward pretty quickly with that deal. And what I told the CEO of this company when I was having this initial conversation is I said, I want to be really clear about something. I said, if you don't believe that what I'm describing to you and what we're going to do together, if you don't believe that's going to increase your company valuation by at least $5 million, let's not work together. I'm not interested in working with you unless we both agree that here's our objectives, right? If we can accomplish those objectives, do you agree with me that we're going to see $5 million minimum in new value creation? Because I believe we will. And he agreed with that. So once he agrees with that, well, I'm going to generate 5 million in valuation. Well, then why wouldn't you pay $500,000 to get 5 million? Right. And so you got to think of it more in terms of the value you can provide. So for those of you that are a little bit newer to that game, and you're dealing with these merchants, think bigger. Okay. That's the main thing I want to get across today is think bigger, figure out how can I bundle these things together to make them more valuable. And that's just such a huge, huge part of it. And the other thing I will tell you is when you think about how valuable would something be to a company, you've got to understand company value, right? So a good way to look at it is you understand residual valuations, right? Most of you understand that concept. If you have a $10,000 a month residual income, you can plan on getting $200,000 to $300,000 for that residual income. So if you can increase your residuals by $10,000, that's actually worth, let's say, $200,000 or $300,000 to you, right? I think we all kind of understand that. So if you're in this industry, you should understand that. And so if you understand that, you should be able to understand these businesses in the same way. If you can go into a restaurant and you can do something for that restaurant that's either going to increase their revenue by $10,000 a month or is going to decrease their expenses by $10,000 a month, or some combination of the two is going to generate a $10,000 per month additional profit or cash flow. Well, guess what? That restaurant eventually is going to be sold, or it's going to have investors or whatever it is. And so the valuation of that restaurant, because you've increased that cash flow, the valuation of that restaurant is going to go up by $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 because of that $10,000 per month improvement in their monthly financials. So for you to come in and say, I will charge you $50,000 this year, right? And so, we're going to charge you, maybe it's, $4,000 a month. So $48,000. So you're going to pay me $4,000 a month for 12 months. And in exchange for that, I'm going to stop by here twice a week and I'm going to work with you to set all this up and make sure your point of sale system's working and train your staff, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result, let me show you how that's going to improve your bottom line of your company by $10,000 a month. Then in their mind, it's like, well, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to pay this person $4,000 a month, and pretty quickly, I'm going to be making an extra $10,000. So even while I'm doing this contract, I'm going to make them $6,000 a month. And at the end of the 12 months, they don't have to pay me anything anymore, and they get to keep that $10,000 a month in additional profit. What a fantastic deal! So my point to all of this is, if I was starting all over again and I had to start from scratch, I had none of my employees, none of my team here. I think we have, by the end of this week, we'll probably have 31 full-time employees at CC Sales Pro and our other subsidiaries. And if I had to start over from scratch with zero and no money, which is how I started, by the way, in this industry, and you said, James, what would you do? This is what I would do. Okay. I would go out there and I would still sell, but instead of me going out there and trying to make $100 per month per account or $200 or whatever, I would be going out there looking for, medium-sized businesses where I could go in and justify getting a $2,000 to $10,000 per month income stream from that one business in order to holistically help them with their payment processing, their point of sale system, training their staff, and all of that. And so you got to become the expert at something, right? You can't sell expertise if you're not an expert, but that's exactly what I would do. And I'm very confident that I'd be able to go out there and I'd be able to get myself 10, 12 accounts very quickly that were paying me an average of, say, $3,000 to $5,000 a month and generate a huge recurring income stream in a short period of time. So I would hope that you will take a minute right now to think bigger. What if you had to grow your revenue? You had to make more money off your clients. What would you do? Think bigger. Think in terms of what's valuable to your client. How can you increase? How can you take your expertise, your resources, and provide value to your client? How much value can you provide? Okay, let's look at that and let's figure out how you can then charge them so they can make an investment in order to capture that value. My name is James Shepard. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this podcast, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.